But today, my story is something that happens to a lot of people, and this state happens to be dealing with it currently. Out there in the great state of Michigan and all of my Michigander friends. That's right. Why Gucci is back, because legal marijuana in Michigan, but employers can drug test for it, and what workers need to know. That's right. As more and more adult use marijuana dispensaries open around Michigan, and notably in big cities like Detroit, oh yeah, employers are increasingly confronted with questions about how to handle testing employees for cannabis. Some Michigan employers began re-examining drug testing policies back in 2008 when medical cannabis was legalized in Michigan. Employment lawyers and staffing firm executives say the movement to re-examine these policies gained momentum again in 2018 when adult use cannabis was legalized, and again in recent years as employers have struggled to hire people. On recent example last week, the Detroit Free Press reported that the state of Michigan rejected 151 job applicants last year who had already received conditional offers of employment after they tested positive for marijuana, according to the Office of State Employer, even as it faced a hiring crunch. That's more than triple the 49 that's more than triple the 49 failed marijuana tests back in 2018. The last year adult use cannabis was illegal under state law, and it also did more than double the 71 failed marijuana tests resulting from the state hiring process back in 2021. Other companies and states around the country are grappling with an increase in positive tests for marijuana, and marijuana positivity surged. I like how they did that. Marijuana positivity surged in 2020 in the general U.S. workforce, according to most recent data available from Quest Diagnostics, a New Jersey-based company that analyzes millions of workplace drug tests every year. In states where adult use cannabis is legal, marijuana positively increased by the largest percentage compared with other states, from 2.2 in 2012 to 4.8% back in 2020. And quote, it's a real balancing act for my clients in a tight labor market to recruit and retain the workers while still maintaining drug policies that are consistent with a patchwork of state and local testing laws and still have a safe workplace. Brian Krucher, a labor and employment attorney at Royal Oak-based law firm Howard and Howard Attorneys PLLC, said. The Detroit Free Press talked with Krucher about how employers are approaching testing for marijuana and what it means to job seekers and workers. And this interview has been shortened for clarity, but there are three questions and answers that they asked during this, and I'm going to read these off to you. The question is, they say, are employers dropping marijuana from their pre-employment drug screening? The answer, he says, I've got some clients that have dropped it. Other clients tell me, nope, we're not having any difficulties. We're maintaining our policy that positive THC tests for applicants are a disqualifying factor, but others have dropped it because they have a work environment that might have fewer workplace safety concerns than a manufacturing facility, for example, where employees are around heavy equipment. He says, suppose it's a manufacturing facility where employees are around robots and dangerously heavy equipment. In that case, employers are probably more reluctant to drop marijuana from the panel because of the severe consequences of losing a limb or a life in a manufacturing facility. Second question. Given that marijuana is legal for adult use in Michigan, can an employer discipline or fire an employee if they test positive for marijuana on a drug screening? And the answer, they say, is this. The law is still such that no employer needs to accommodate even medical marijuana use in the workplace. They can discipline and fire employees if they are using while on duty or are impaired or under the influence while at work, as opposed to THC remains in the system for an extended period of time. We don't currently have any available testing that accurately would indicate a level of intoxication at a particular time. So employers might have an employee who tests positive for marijuana in a past accident drug test. Is that enough to fire the employee in Michigan, he asks? He says it would be, but employers really need to focus on the behavior and train their supervisors to recognize the signs of being under the influence of marijuana. Once in a while, employers will have the person caught on video vaping, for example, or a coworker witnessing the act, but by and large, they are not going to have that kind of smoking gun evidence. So then it's going to be incumbent on employers, supervisors to be able to identify, well, why do we think this person is impaired? It's good to have objective evidence, or slurred speech or glazed eyes, for example. Those glizzy eyes. Final question for you guys. President Joe Biden announced in October that he would ask the Department of Justice and Health and Human Services to review how marijuana should be scheduled under federal law. Currently, marijuana is considered a Schedule I substance, meaning it has no potential for abuse, or has only a potential for abuse, and no currently accepted medical use and treatment in the U.S. if marijuana is scheduled differently. How could that change drug testing? His answer is employers at the point marijuana is rescheduled or descheduled would want to take a close look at their drug policies. Many drug testing policies currently have a provision that says employers can take adverse employment action for illegal drug use under either state or federal law, and the federal law has been the caveat that many employers keep in their drug testing policies because it's still a Schedule I drug. Now, if that's dropped, their policies would have to be revised, they say. Well, I'll tell you what, in California, we have a thing out here where you can't be discriminated in work for your use of cannabis. And not only that, but you're also allowed to have a beer on your lunch break, which means the same thing for cannabis, that you could smoke a joint on your lunch break and not get fired. But that's California and not Michigan. And this is Jason Beck reporting for the High at 9 News Hour. What do y'all have to say?